shows up to pick her up. Well, I don't like there being two ups in there.
It must have been love, but it's over now. It must have been good, but I lost it somehow.
Welcome to the Barry Podcast, an unofficial show covering the officially awesome HBO series, Body. I'm one of your hosts, Jamie G. Esquire the Fifth, also known as the Sandman. And I'm here with my co-host, Magnum to talk about the 25th episode of Barry, Season 4, Season Opener, Episode 1, titled
Yikes.
I am Magnum Mills, and man, every time someone tells me yikes, it never really works out for me. But what's working out for you is checking out the Barry Podcast. Thank you. Find us wherever you get your pods. Just search for Barry Podcast. Find us on social media at Barry Podcast. Search for us on YouTube, or if you go to JoeBlowFootballShow.com, we'll bring you right to our YouTube channel. If you could, please take, about 8 seconds to do one of the like, comment, follow, rate, subscribe thing. You know the deal. Again, just takes you a few seconds, but it helps other people find our show, so we really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
And during our episode discussion, we are going to be spoiling Yikes, as well as all previous episodes of Barry. Episode 2 of Season 4 aired right after this episode, but we will not be discussing any events of that episode here. This is a Yikes-only zone.
Damn, man, here I was about ready to drop a Jinkies and make a joke about having a Velma fetish, and now all I can say is yikes. Moving on. It's time to make with the episode details starting now. This is Season 4, Episode 1, the 25th overall episode of Barry, titled Yikes. Originally aired Sunday, April 16th, 2023. Directed by Bill Hader, as are all episodes in Season 4. This is the 11th episode of Barry that he has directed. Written by Bill Hader. This is actually his first solo written by credit on Barry. The short plot synopsis is, Barry deals with his past in prison while finding Fuchs with him. Sally returns home. Gene has a spark of new fame after his help with capturing Barry.
And before we get into our recap discussion of the episode, let's start out by giving our overall thoughts on Yikes. We both come from the camp of there's no bad episodes of Barry. There was a lot to kind of deal with here. And I just think looking back after we covered, all 3 seasons here on the Barry Podcast, I don't know that the opening, episode is really the strong suit of this group here. So was it a bad episode? No. Was it as great as it could have been? Probably not. But I thought it was effective in that it kind of, answered. We got a lot of individual kind of characters here facing their own destinies. And I thought it kind of did a good job of shaping up some of those and, moving the chess pieces along here so we can see kind of how the season unfolds. But it wasn't necessarily the greatest episode of Barry I think I've ever watched either. So
it feels like we're, again, pretty much in the same camp here. This episode, of course, had a ton to do because not only were there major plot developments last year, this is functionally a different show. I think when we start, Gene is the only one in the same, even remote space is where it was when he started. I mean, Sally's in Joplin, Barry's in jail, Noho, Hank, and Cristobal are in New Mexico. Everybody is all over the place. So they have a ton of work to do here to eventually bring it all back together somehow, assuming that they do. I liked it, but like you said, Barry, really good at the season finales, not as good with the season premieres. I will stick by that there has never been a bad episode of Barry, but I don't know, man. Maybe just the expectations were tough to dial in here because you could expect almost anything from Barry gets, broke out of jail in the first episode to he's convicted to life in prison in the first episode. There was no telling how fast or slow they were going to move the story. So it was a little tough to know where to kind of dial your expectations into going in. And you're trying not to miss anything too. Is this a new character? What's really going on here? Especially because Barry sometimes says he slips out of reality a little bit, so to speak, depending on what's going on. So you really have to pay attention. Definitely enjoyed it. Definitely a solid episode of Barry, but again, it's not going to be in my top 5 or anything.
All right, man. I'm calling you collect. You need to pick up the phone and start breaking down Yikes.
We open the season in jail. A pair of guards are watching the LAPD press conference about Barry's arrest when they see Barry himself arrive in jail. They seem a bit starstruck, and they quickly agree to Barry's request for a phone call. Barry calls Gene, who is at the press conference. Barry is in denial about Gene working with Jim Moss to set him up. Barry tells Gene, "I love you," and Gene responds by telling Barry,
I got you.
Nice little callback here with remember Jean calling Janice Moss when she was at the press conference before. Now Jean is at the police press conference on the other end of that phone call, kind of. So I thought that was a cool little parallel.
Yeah, and I thought it was kind of cool too to see just, season 3 of Barry, he was really just kind of in a funk, man, just like depressed and down, and that didn't change here at all, right? Like he looks like complete shit, literally. And so I thought that was kind of cool too. Gene seemed a little bit happy that he feels like he thinks he won, right?
Yeah, 100% he does. Also, this is the first instance of the collect call from jail runner. We get a couple times throughout the episode where Barry's trying to get a hold of people. Again, not the first rodeo for a police press conference. Those are always a lot of fun. We do get our first glimpse of the new district attorney here, D.A. Buckner. We'll get a scene with him in a bit. And what's up with these prison guards, man? Should they really be fanboying that hard at Barry? I mean, this is a LA County jail, right? There's no way Barry is the most famous person they've ever seen in jail, right?
He's on fucking TV. He was just on that screen, and now he's in our cell block, dude. That's awesome.
Can't be, but I did think it was cool that this is blowing up to such a huge deal where it's making, not only local but kind of national news. Like that's kind of a cool. So it was a little bit weird at the oohing and on at him, but I do like that they've made this kind of like, dude, it's out in the open. There's no putting the toothpaste back in the tube now.
No, there's really not. And we do confirm that Barry is 44 years old here. That's even a little bit older than I thought he was, maybe. The show hasn't always been the clearest on the timeline and stuff like that. So it fits and everything. I just would have probably put a gun to my head. I said 36 or something. Probably more mid-30s than mid-40s, but, whatever. It's Barry. I guess the prime for an assassin lasts longer than it does for an NBA player or something.
I think so, man. I think so.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't know many NBA players or assassins, especially people who do both. So,
real quick, any surprise to you, real quickly, about just Barry's kind of stance with Mr. Cousineau here? I mean, after everything that happened, did you think it was weird that he basically was asked if he's mad at him and was like, "I love you"? Like, did that surprise you at all, or did you think he was going to be maybe different towards him? Or
I think just textbook denial and or shock. I think if I'm tracking this right, this happened the season 3 finale happened the night before. So we're really still pretty fresh off of it. So it wouldn't surprise me if Barry is just still, again, just in disbelief. He can't bring himself to believe that Mr. Cousineau would do that to him.
Yeah.
After the title card, we're on the plane with Sally headed to Joplin. She seems to be on edge, and her phone starts blowing up as soon as the plane begins to land. In the airport, she gets a call from Lindsay, who tells her that Barry killed Janice Moss the night she disappeared. Sally's mom arrives at the airport to pick her up, and they head towards home. On the way there, Sally reads an LA Times article about Barry's arrest, and she starts to break down. Sally is probably having a panic attack, and she's a complete mess. But her mother doesn't really seem to care. If anything, she's just kind of annoyed with Sally. What do you think, man? Again, because this happened so soon to the events of the previous episode, do you think Sally hasn't even had time to contemplate, after seeing Barry with dead bodies and that, she hasn't put 2 and 2 together to think oh man, maybe he did have something to do with Janice?
Yeah, dude, I think just because of the sheer fact that it went on as, the way it did, just immediately picking back up, I don't think she's had a chance to even plus she's just so much in her own world and all she thinks, I mean, not to say she's self-centered, but she's self-centered. I don't think she has the ability to even think of anything else other than that. You know what I mean? I don't think she's unpacked it. And I don't know that I would either at this point.
Yeah, and keep in mind, I think she's still also worried that she could genuinely be in trouble. Because she did kill somebody and Barry was supposed to get rid of the body, and given the time frame, how can she even really be sure that he was able to do so? And that's what she says. She might be in real trouble and she's asking for help. I don't think she's asking for help emotionally because her boyfriend did that. She's asking for help because she's worried she's going to end up in jail with him.
Yeah.
Sally's mom, I mean, probably not winning Mother of the Year awards, right?
We call her the B word from the C ward. Or is it the C word from the B ward?
No, she's probably not. It seemed a little odd here that I think she's just mostly annoyed with Sally. And I also think that Sally probably has been problematic over the years as a kid and probably put them through a lot of stress. That's my initial take here.
I would believe it, but again, when one of your children says the person I was dating killed somebody close to me, that should knock down most of the barriers to being okay, this is probably a thing. This
Yeah,
isn't even like the fact that, she hasn't
Any
bothered to watch
normal-
Joplin until now. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? She obviously doesn't seem to, care that much. Again, she's just like, what are you doing here? It's almost an inconvenience that Sally is there.
Well, and it was also weird because the only thing she cared about was the fact that, Sally used Sam's name, and that comes up later in the episode, but like that's the only time we saw her really care about anything.
Yeah, and there's a couple other smaller things here. The reveal that they're having this dramatic conversation at the drive-through window.
Y'all done? We are. Thank you, honey. Oh, could I get some chili cheese tots to go? Oh, sure thing. Thank you, sweetheart.
I don't know if they were at the speaker ordering or at the actual window, but just when you hear the clerk and she asks for the chili tater tots or whatever, that's classic Barry right there. When it's kind of close in and you zoom out or something, and then you realize where they actually are, and it adds some humor to what would otherwise be a very dramatic scene.
Well, and what was great is you needed it here. You needed that little element of humor. Sally's doing one of her classic, like, anxiety-riddled panics and scream sessions, and yeah, we needed that. So I thought that was really, really good, well placed.
Yeah, and I'm not going to go too hard on the phone exchange between Sally and Lindsay, because I bet that'll come up again later. We do see Sally get a bunch of texts from people we know. We see texts from Lindsay, her mom, Sasha, and Katie. And when they're in the car, the song playing is "It Must Have Been Love" by Roxette. So good one with that, because I don't know that the love is really helping Sally out there. And I have to say, when she was on the phone with Lindsay sounded genuinely concerned from a friend standpoint. Like, she wasn't calling from a professional aspect. She was genuinely worried about Sally. And from what I can tell, remember on the plane, you hear a kid giggling, and then somebody looks over the seat, but it's not a kid. And then the plane kind of bumps. I think the landing gear going down. So I think what's happening there is Sally is asleep and she's dreaming, and that's the dude she killed with the dirt under his fingernails and everything. You can barely see it, but I'm almost positive that's the dude she iced in the season 3 finale. And then when the plane kind of puts on the landing gear and shakes, that's when she wakes up. Am I nuts?
I don't think you're nuts, man. I think you're spot on. It makes good sense to me.
Back in jail, Barry is having a meal in the mess hall, and the other inmates are staring at him and whispering about him. Barry gets up and walks past Fuchs, seemingly without noticing him. This scares the shit out of Fuchs, so he meets with the FBI in an effort to cut a deal. He offers to wear a wire in exchange for protection in prison and a new life on the outside. Boy, and I'm probably going to show my age on this one, but you go first here, because my favorite part of the scene is going to make me look old.
It was nice to kind of get the view of how they were going to do jail. We caught a little bit of it in the preview, but I thought it was cool to kind of see how they do it. Not a ton to it here. I mean, I do like the FBI room. I thought that was kind of cool, but
I was going to ask, does that really seem something you'd see in a prison? My notes were,
No.
It seemed like where you would be before you go on stage at the Tonight Show or something.
yeah.
Like a
Oh,
corridor
definitely.
between backstage and main stage or something like that. It felt something more actory. And that's what in my head, a little bit I was thinking, I'm like, man, is Barry dead already?
When I could actually see it being a thing that Jim Moss would use too, to like torture someone, like keep him in a strange room like that where it was just long and narrow.
It looked a little bit like an old school studio too. Like if the Wu-Tang Clan had just came in and started spitting, it wouldn't have surprised me. Would have been a really nice crossover. I wouldn't have been expecting.
I don't know what's bothering you, but whatever it is, we're going to find it out and get it through your head. You're in a bad spot. If you're not interested in helping yourself, then neither am I. Now, the monkey's on your back. You're going to have to help scratch it off. Now, get with it. What's it all about?
And speaking of crossovers, I wasn't expecting. This absolutely 100% has to be intentional. You have the two feds, and the one on the left talks exactly like Joe Friday from Dragnet. You probably don't remember Dragnet. They did make a movie out of it in the 80s. I believe Tom Hanks was in it. They rebooted sometime in the early 2000s, I think with Ed O'Neill. But the point is, as a lead detective, his name's Joe Friday, and he talks like this. And the way that dude says his lines...
That's a common problem for people in prison, Mr. Fuchs.
I need protection.
Word on the street is you and Berkman were besties. No, you're not.
That's 100% a Joe Friday from Dragnet thing. I will bet everything I own on it, and that is such a random, awesome reference. I mean, that's Dragnet's old. It started shooting in black and white, switched to color halfway through. I believe Harry Morgan, the guy, he was also Colonel Potter on MASH, was the co-star in there for a while. Dragnet, dude, really good old school. It's basically where Law and Order came from. In the next scene, Gene is meeting with the district attorney, and his son Leo is there to support him. The DA tells Gene that he'll be a key witness against Barry, and that will require him to testify in open court. He asks Gene if he can handle that, Gene looks at Leo and says,
Absolutely.
not a lot here, just kind of our official introduction to the DA, who apparently really enjoys Caroline Ray.
When Jim Moss called me and said he was using Gene Cousineau to help capture his daughter's killer, I said, are you telling me jokes? You Caroline Ray?
I can assure you he is not Caroline Ray.
One little thing here is you kind of get a sense that Gene is fully aligned with Leo, and that relationship remains pretty good. So I'll just say that.
Yeah, this probably made him look a lot better in Leo's eyes, to be honest, because now Barry's an excuse for anything that had basically been screwed up since they reconciled.
Yeah.
Now it'd just be, oh, Barry, that explains everything. You know, it's working as a get out of jail free card for him. I don't know if it works the same for everyone else. Any thoughts on the new DA? I just wanted to say that he seemed a little bit more competent than the cops, at least.
A smidge, which had me thinking, okay, does that mean we're going to kind of see, like, maybe they ride out Barry in jail and then we see him like get sentenced, right? I don't know. They can go a lot of different ways with this. And it made me think that maybe his punishment is going to be, something else. Maybe that's going to be a bigger part of this.
He's going to get sent to the fucking Suicide Squad or something. I would kind of be there for that crossover, I'll admit it. Finally, it's time to check in on Cristobal and NoHo Hank. They're living a quiet life in a rental house in Santa Fe. They want to buy a place of their own, but they learn from their landlady that there's a housing shortage. This is due to a delay in new construction because of a sand shortage. And one of the greatest things is when the landlady tells them there's a sand shortage, and they just slowly turn around and look at the goddamn giant desert through the window behind them, and she's like, no, that's not good sand.
Dude, I literally laughed out loud. I'm like, so you're telling me you have a hard time finding sand? Great scene. Again, an episode where it needed the humor. These were welcome moments.
Yeah, I actually did some research, and this is a real thing. Even in LA right now, they're having to import sand and gravel from Vancouver Island in Canada. There are sand mafias in other parts of the world. And right now, the estimate is that we use between 40 and 50 billion metric tons of sand to be building shit like this, which is triple what it was 2 decades ago. So this actually has some truth to it. I'm assuming somebody read this somewhere and thought it would be maybe a cool way to go instead of doing the heroin thing or whatever. So I think that's a little cool use of real world stuff. And shout out the landlady. She was really moving that oven, man. The Eagles might need her as some backup on the on the offensive line next year.
Hippie woman in the hat, dude. Gotta love her.
Did it surprise you at all that NoHo Hank and Cristobal are just chilling in New Mexico, given where we left them at the end of season 3?
I think it kind of, not really. I mean, it kind of made sense, I think. They wouldn't stick around in Bolivia, right? And I don't know that they go back because of the whole Chechkin thing. So it kind of made sense that they're kind of hiding out. But yeah, it didn't necessarily surprise me, but it also wasn't like, oh, okay, I pictured that. I was kind of right in the middle with it.
Fair enough. And if we were going to assign Wizard of Oz characters to Cristobal and Hank, who would they be?
For some reason, Hank as the lion just sits right with me. It really does.
I agree, because he needs courage, kind of, right? Everyone thought he was soft or whatever.
Yes. I think that would be good. And then, I could see Cristobal as, in a weird way, as actually being Oz.
I thought about that a little bit, but then I decided he would be the good witch.
Yeah.
Or the leader of the Lollipop Guild. I'm willing to go with either.
We resemble but are legally distinct from the Lollipop Guild.
And you do have to wonder if there's just a touch of foreshadowing, because we get the shot, if you watch on YouTube, you see part of the scene behind Jamie G, where Cristobal and Hank are sitting outside, and they show him from the back both sitting there, they show him from the front both sitting there, and Cristobal leaves, and they just show Hank sitting there by himself. So you wonder if that's just a little visual foreshadowing to maybe some upcoming tension or a possible break between the two or something like that. Wouldn't put it past Barry. After that, Sally and her mom arrive home, and Sally checks out her childhood bedroom, which is now her dad's man cave. Although it's not really that great of a man cave. It's more of a taxidermy display center. She gets a collect call from Barry, which she declines to accept. We stay with Barry, and now he's out in the prison yard where he has visions of Sally and Jean. Then Fuchs shows up and starts asking Barry questions about an old job. Barry responds by telling Fuchs that he was right about Mr. Cousineau and that he never should have taken that acting class.
If I hadn't tried to understand myself, we wouldn't be here.
Barry apologizes to Fuchs and walks away, leaving Fuchs absolutely stunned. Let's be honest here, dude. What the fuck was Barry thinking when he called Sally?
I really think he's lost his mind, man. Like I think he's just in the worst place we've seen him in the entire series. Just a terrible decision. Same thing he was thinking when he called Gene, Cousineau. I think he's just in denial, and I think he's just desperate, and it's sad, kind of.
Obviously very desperate and sad, so it's easy to buy both of that. But how about this? We've heard Fuchs multiple times in the series thinking Barry should apologize to him, and here Barry actually apologizes to him. Do you think Fuchs really deserved that apology?
No. I mean, out of all the time, there's been times where maybe he has. I don't know that this was it, but for better or worse, he got it.
I mean, Barry blames them for himself for them being in jail, but Fuchs is the one who's worn a wire. Now twice. He's currently wearing a wire as Barry's apologizing to him. I do like the irony of that. That, of course, that's how things work. Fuchs decides I'm going to betray him, and here's Barry telling him what he's wanted to hear for all these years.
Yep.
Do you think it's much about Fuchs, or it's the fact that he feels betrayed by Gene now? Because he kind of trusted Gene over Fuchs, and now that Gene has obviously scorned him and turned him in, is Barry just running right back to what he knows in Fuchs?
Maybe a little bit, but you got to, I mean, Barry doesn't have many people in the well to draw on. It's pretty much Fuchs and Mr. Cousineau and Sally, right? And he's lost two of them, so.
Yeah, he's in worse shape than that 40-year-old set of golf clubs that was in Sally's dad's man cave. Those were made out of wood. Those are worth more as antiques than they are on the golf course, I can tell you that. And I did like how when Sally's looking around, she sees the remnants of her old stickers between a couple of dead animal heads. That was just a nice little touch of just how her parents have kind of moved on, and she doesn't really even have a home there anymore. And I think when Barry was imagining Sally on the stairs, I think that was the first time we met Sally when she was sitting on the stairs. I think that was that scene.
Yeah, I think it was when he wanders and he goes to walk in and he kind of stumbles upon her sitting on the steps reading lines to herself.
We're a long way from Oz, Jamie G.
Yes, we are, sir. Yes, we are.
Next up is a taping of Gene's show where he gets a standing ovation from the audience, and we see Jim Moss in the back. After the taping, Jim goes backstage and talks to Gene. He tells Gene that he's starting to get interview requests from the media, and Gene says that the same thing has been happening to him. In fact, they've both been contacted by Lon O'Neill, a reporter from Vanity Fair. They agree that neither of them should talk to the media as it could hurt the case against Barry. That whole bit when Gene's reminiscing and he's like,
"You yelled at me this close to mine. You scared the shit out of me." Yeah. That's the guy.
Well, dude, that was an intense. He did get this close to him. Like that was an intense scene. So nice little flashback.
Even though their oven is fixed, Hank and Cristobal go out to a Mexican restaurant for some food. They begin discussing the sand shortage they learned about from their landlady. Cristobal sees an opportunity to finally become the top dogs in LA, while Hank doesn't seem too sure about it. You hear Cristobal mention that Hank once dreamed about being the top dog in LA. Do you think if he ever even had that dream, do you think Hank really still has that dream?
I didn't think that was really Hank's dream. I think that was more Goran's dream, right? I don't think that was Hank's dream. I think Hank just wants to have fun and be happy and live his life and do whatever he wants. I don't think he wants to be the top criminal.
Yeah, I mean, he really wants to be somewhere where the trail running is great. That is very important. I think it's in 207 when he's trapped on that bus that's on fire and he gives a big monologue to the guys. He mentions about how happy he would be running a hotel or something. I mean, yes, theoretically, the sand thing isn't the heroin racket. It could be legit or what have you, but it's still, I don't know that he wants to really be the top dog of anything. I think he's perfectly happy to just be a dog in the pack or have his own little pair of dogs with him and Cristobal, and they don't need it anymore. And shout out the scene and everything here. Hank basically blends in with the furniture and the wallpaper or whatever's on the wall. And when they have the dinner music and it's just a rain stick that the dude tips over, I legitimately laughed out loud at that.
Yeah, because I was expecting a mariachi band or something, and not that. So
I thought I was waiting for the and I was and ending. It does the rain stick. I'm like, okay. Well, now what's the next part of it? And there was no, that was it. That was the joke. And that made it even funnier. Back at Sally's, her dad finds her under his desk in her old bedroom / his man cave. He tries to comfort her and says that they're going to watch Joplin after dinner. They don't make it very far into the first episode before Sally and her mom get into a big fight, ostensibly because Sally used Sam's real first name in the show. Sally tries asking her mom for help, but her mom leaves to inform Sam's mother if she doesn't already know. Sally's dad tries to help by offering her a temporary job, but Sally seems completely broken, and the prospect of staying in Joplin isn't very enticing. The theme of a lot of HBO shows protagonists could be their parents were screwed up. We saw so much of this with Tony Soprano when you start digging into how people's psyche was affected from how they were raised. Do you get any insights into who Sally is by finally meeting her parents here?
I think a little bit, and not even meeting them. I think her relationship with them is really the telling factor here for me.
Or lack thereof.
Or lack thereof. Yeah, how poor of a relationship it is. Like that kind of tells me a lot about her behavior, her desires, the way she acts, all that stuff when she's out kind of in LA, right? Like that tells you a lot because of what, basically not having good relationship with her family.
The way I read it, I guess at least on a funny level, how I approached it was I was like, oh man, they haven't watched Joplin yet? You would think, I'm sure Sally could have even gotten them a free subscription or password or something, right, when she was doing the show and working for them. So they should have been able to watch it. And in my head, I'm like, well, Sally's mom probably didn't want to watch it. Her dad did, but then her mom was like, no, you can't watch that. And her dad listened. And that's what struck me as the basis of the relationship, where definitely Sally's mom is in charge. She does not really give a fuck. And although Sally's dad really loves her and everything, he will not cross her mom because I bet you she could be on one when you're on her bad side. So you kind of get it. I don't want to drop the K word or anything like that, but she's sitting there with her glass of wine and she's got to tell Sam's mom because they go to church together and everything. It just seems like, well, you've met that person before, right? And generally not someone you want to be around. So you get why maybe Sally would have even jumped into a relationship and got married earlier than she should have just to get out of that house.
Yeah, and I also think that they probably maybe even sided with Sam and didn't believe her, about his abuse towards her. So I also think that plays into kind of the Sally we see and the Sally we know, and it's sad, honestly.
Oh, dude, are you fucking kidding me? Sally's mom won the World Series of whataboutism when Sally brings it up that Sam choked her, and she was like, oh, and your boyfriend in LA killed somebody. Like, that makes it okay then. And then she throws it back later, like, oh, you sure know how to pick them. Yeah. And even setting Sally up when Sally's trying not to scream and asking her mom for help, and her mom's like, I can't respond to you if you're going to scream. And then finally Sally screams, and her mom knew exactly what to say to make her do it. That is just a textbook unhealthy relationship.
Yeah. Which makes you wonder, is that why Sally always kind of ends up in these unhealthy relationships? It's just sad, man.
It is cyclical. It's a vicious cycle. And again, Sally's mom brings up the whole you don't have a daughter thing with Joplin. We saw that come up as a point of contention between both Natalie and Sally about their respective shows. Next, we see Hank as a prisoner in Bolivia, where he was in the season 3 finale. But this time, Barry is there with him. Hank wakes up and calls Barry. Someone answers the phone, but it's most definitely not Barry. Hank hangs up and he goes on the internet where he discovers what's happened to Barry. Cristobal catches him on the laptop. Hank lies and says that he was researching the sand shortage. He tells Cristobal that
we'd be crazy not to do this. Let's go back to LA.
A little weird here, right? Not the first time we've seen Hank dream about Barry.
No, it's not at all. And it's also not the first time we've questioned kind of Hank's motivations towards Barry. So keeps you wondering, that's for sure.
I mean, what do you think? Was Hank looking for an excuse to go back to LA, or just does he want to go see Barry specifically?
Dude, I don't know, man. Does Hank look like he's going to be happy kind of living out in the desert in New Mexico or Mexico? Like, no, dude, he needs to be back in the city. He needs to have his clothes and all his stuff. Like, I don't know, man. He seems like an LA guy, and I don't know that he's going to be happy not being in LA.
I do kind of question that they're the only people on the planet that don't know about the Barry news yet. But again, if this is all taking place in one day and it just happened the night before, I suppose you could buy it. Back in jail, Barry's in a bathroom and he flips out at himself in a mirror and starts punching the wall. The friendly guard from the opening scene tries to help Barry, but Barry isn't having it. He wants the pain. He tells the guard that he's a cop killer and threatens the guard's family. That earns Barry the beatdown that he was looking for, and he's knocked unconscious. When he comes to, Barry is alone in the bathroom. Fuchs finds him, ditches the wire, and they embrace. Fuchs apologizes to Barry, and they tell each other, I love you. Any surprise here at Fuchs breaking down, apologizing to Barry, and then them embracing and all that?
Not really. I think it tracks. I mean, we've kind of seen this angle before where Fuchs gets mad or scared and tries to turn on Barry, but then, Barry comes around and is basically tells him that he cares, makes him feel like he cares about him, and then Fuchs kind of changes his tune. So we've kind of seen it before, so I wasn't necessarily surprised by it.
Were you surprised that Barry was pushing that hard for a beatdown? Because that's what he was doing, right? When he said that to the guard, it was with the sole intention of he wanted to get hurt.
Yeah, I think and we kind of seen it, with him kind of hitting himself. I think he was so mad at himself and hates himself so much that he wanted that. Again, it's dark, man. Like it was kind of, pretty dark episode to really.
I mean, I can add another layer of darkness because I think they took Officer Birdwell here. He's that guard we see in that first episode, in the first part of the episode, and he's all, oh, he's great, give him whatever he wants. So the idea is supposed to be he is this nice guy, and Barry's in such a dark place that he pushes this nice guy to give him that beating. And then if you really read into it, the implication is he was still beating Barry when Fuchs found him and Fuchs stopped him. And that's why you get Fuchs screaming, I'm an informant, keep your voice down, and Fuchs is staying. You have to almost be watching, have it with closed captioning on to see. But Fuchs is telling him, like, I'll leave you out of it. I never saw anything, but you got to stop beating him. So you get the idea that this dude was really going to fucking beat Barry within an inch of his life. And Fuchs just yelling, I'm an informant at the top of his lungs in a jail is just so Fuchs. And dude, let's be honest. He throws the wire away here. Is Fuchs the worst informant in the history of informants?
He's way up there on the list, man. You can't trust Fuchs.
I feel like that guy who's applying at Wendy's and you look at his resume. So let's see, you've been fired from Taco Bell, Chick-fil-A, Burger King, McDonald's. So what brings you here? All right, we'll hire you. It seems to be like, where's the bottom here? I mean, you got to have some standards when it comes to your informants.
One would think.
Fuchs went to them. Yeah, Fuchs went to them and pitched it. It's not like they even came to him. They had the hand. This is all I get. In the final scene of the episode, we meet Lon O'Neill, who gets an anonymous call. We see that it's Gene on the other end of the phone, and Gene tells him that they're going to meet tomorrow, and Lon will learn the story of how Gene Cousineau caught Barry Berkman. I love how, I don't know if it's his wife, whoever gives him the phone, it's like, oh, it's the Batman guy again. And I love Gene's basically doing a little bit of take on Christian Bale's Batman voice. I thought that was pretty great.
Tomorrow, and I'm going to tell you how Gene Cousineau caught Barry Berkman.
Has Gene kind of let this go to his head a little bit of a power here move, huh? Going against what he agreed to with Jim Moss.
That really surprised me because I get the idea he's genuinely afraid, and I guess that's why he's trying to do it anonymously or whatever. What else does he want? All the articles seem to mention him. They have his picture. I'm not sure, what else is he looking for? Does he want to go on Dancing with the Stars or something? I mean, it just happened. All he's got to do is wait a little bit, right?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if he sees this as his big ticket back in to show business or something or fame. I just wish his agent Tom was involved in advising him. God, we could use Tom's humor here.
I'm always down with more Tom. Hopefully, he's got an assistant named Jerry.
Well, I think that does it for our recap discussion. And before we get to our award tour, let's see what the internet thinks about this episode. So over on IMDb, our friends have rated Yikes at 8.9. That will probably change a bit as time goes on. This is very fresh, but for now, we're going to go with an 8.9. So that puts it in a tie for the 9th highest rated episode of Barry ever. Again, there's only been 26 episodes here. What do you think, dude? Does this feel like a top 10 episode to you?
Head is in the right area, probably. I'd say more. So there's 26. So you're saying just about 9 is the top third. So I would put it just outside that, probably more like 12 to 15 in that range, maybe. So middle of the road, I would say. Not great, not bad. Again, never been a bad episode of Barry, but I don't know that this is going to be a particularly memorable one, especially if season 4 turns out to be an absolute banger that, like most Barry seasons, really picks up steam as it goes along. How about you?
Couldn't agree more. I had this at 15. But you could maybe sell me on bumping it up to 12, but I think it lives in that range. Completely agree.
And that's also the range that can change pretty easily depending on when you're watching it, what kind of mood you're in, that kind of thing. And, you know, there's never been a bad episode of Barry, but you can argue that there have definitely been some bad episode titles on Barry. Bill Hader, others, they've admitted they don't really spend a ton of time on the episode titles, but I do want to say that I've seen the first 7 season 4 episode titles are out there on Wikipedia or whatever, and they look like the best of any season so far. I like Yikes. They worked it in here. I think it's pretty good, but we're committed to this bit. So Jamie G, can you do better than Yikes?
I'm an informant. I think would have been interesting. Just knowing where they left off season 3. That would have been an interesting one for me.
Yeah, if you wanted to go that way, I'd go with I Got You. That would be a pretty good one. Again, could be a little spoilery if somebody has never seen the show and they look at all 4 seasons, so they might try to avoid that a little. But Who Is This could be decent. We could have Both Things, Not Anymore. You know, fun one would be Not Caroline Ray. Not as good as usual. I mean, Are You Mad at Me? There's a couple all right ones, but again, I think Yikes works pretty well. You know, you could have gone with Jinkies if you worked a Scooby-Doo reference in there somewhere, but.
Well, what about just Because I Love You? That would have been kind of weird too. Like that would have did something.
What are you doing here?
Cue the tribe, because it's time for the first stop on our award tour. First up is our favorite quote or dialogue exchange from Yikes. For me, Magnum Mills, I gotta go with just the initial exchange with Sally and her mom when, you know, when Sally's mom's basically like,
Sally, I'm double parked. Why do you look like that? Why are you home?
Imagine being greeted by your parent like that. I just thought that was kind of a huge thing to be like, oh, wow, dude, Sally's home life really sucks. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I didn't picture it being like that. So that was kind of a big moment. And I think it kind of gives a lot of insight into Sally and not only where she is and what she's done, but maybe what she'll do going forward here.
I hate you a little bit because I'm basically going to rewind 30 seconds because I'm going to go with the exchange between Sally and Lindsay on the phone.
Why? What's going on?
Sally, Barry was arrested for murder.
I don't know anything about that.
How?
I wasn't with him.
But you told me you were with him.
What? No, I didn't.
Yes, you did.
Wait, what are you talking about?
What are you talking about?
I'm talking about how I wasn't with him.
Sally, Barry killed Kusino's girlfriend the night she went missing.
But I was with him.
I know. He was just arrested.
I love those kind of stupid, old school, little farcical jokes like that. So I really enjoyed that bit. It was one of the few things in this episode that definitely made me just laugh out loud. Up next is our favorite moment or scene from Yikes. My turn to go first here. I have to go with the scene backstage between Gene and Jim Moss. Always loved Jim Moss. I think him and Gene have a great dynamic. Whenever Gene's kind of backed in the corner and a little scared, he just gets that little kind of crazy energy. And Jim Moss is just that dude who's just so cool and just kill you by looking at you. Again, you know, Gene basically saying, you know, he's scared shitless just for Jim Moss getting in his face a little bit. How about yourself, man? Favorite moment, favorite scene?
You know, there wasn't a ton of humor in this, but I got to go with one of the moments that really cracked me up, and that was the sand shortage moment where it's just perfectly timed turn behind, where, you know, the way the camera angle is, all you can see is kind of the backdrop's this window with nothing but sand. That was just a really funny moment to me. Also, you know, could prove to be kind of an important moment as the series goes on. But I do, you know, just in terms of if they do something with this opportunity with the sand. But it was just much needed humor for me.
I love both those things. I'm just trying to decide if I want to make it a Arrested Development joke or a Sand People from Star Wars joke.
Oh, I'm very particular about building code.
That brings us to our Austin Reeves of Assassins, which is our MVP of the episode. I'm going to go first here, take a stab at this. Kind of a tough episode, but I'm actually gonna give it to up for Gene. Like, Gene's riding high here. He feels like he got Barry. He's locked up. He avenged Janice's death, kind of set his name straight. He's making power moves. I think I gotta go Gene.
I want to point out that if we had seen Cristobal and Hank's landlady in a couple more scenes, she might have been eligible, but I can't. She's ineligible with only one scene, so I think it's got to be Mean Gene. He's definitely a winner in this episode, 100%. And cards on the table. We ain't IMDb. And we're certainly no Roddy T's, but we still have to do our best to give a grade to Yikes.
Cause I'm the Fonz, huh? Hey.
In honor of Henry Winkler, Mean Gene Cousineau himself, we grade each episode of Barry on a scale of 1 to 10 Fonzies. Hey, I'm up first here. I am going to go kind of middle of the roadish, but not bad. 8.5 Fonzies. Hey, do that 8.5 times. JBG?
The Fonz is cool, and so is Barry. This episode was really, really, really dark. I wanted there to be a smidge more on the humor side. They did kind of just enough there, but I do think I applaud them for kind of setting the stage here, because there was just so much magnitude to what they could have did or didn't do. I've got a little bit lower than you. I'm going 8.38.
Still pretty good. Can't really be upset with that. Still a strong B average, I feel there. Middle B. Typically, we'd probably do a couple of predictions here, but we've both already seen 402, so there's no point in doing that. Next up is Season 4, Episode 2, Bestest Place on Earth. Again, that aired the same night as Yikes, so you can find the episode covering that in our podcast feed or on our YouTube channel.
Isn't Beignets by Mitch the best place on earth? I guess we'll have to tune in to find out. Thank you for tuning into the Barry Podcast. We hope you enjoyed our show and that we enhanced your Barry experience in some shape, form, or fashion. Please remember, like, subscribe, comment. Just freaking do it, dude. We're just going to keep asking you till you do it. So just do it. Anything else here, buddy, before we bounce?
You said shape, form, or fashion, so I got Method Man stuck in my head.
You know about them fucking statin kids, they smash it. Everything, in any shape, form, or fashion.
Social media and stuff. We're the Barry Podcast. Find us wherever you get your pods on social media at Barry Podcast. Search for us on YouTube. Go to JoeBlowFootballShow.com. Brings you right to our YouTube channel. If you enjoyed what you watched, what you heard, please give us that thumb, like, subscribe, comment, follow. Just do one. We love you for it. I am Magnum Mills. He is Jamie G. We are the co-presidents of the Mitch Fan Club, and we like to go out by bringing it in. 1, 2, 3. Cousineau!